As we know, he recently came back here to the United Kingdom, and just ahead of this particular situation, he begged her not to do anything that could jeopardize.
There's one thing you can always count on with Meghan Markle, and ironically, it's that you can't count on her. Even her husband, Prince Harry, knows this in his bones. After months of careful planning, he returned to the United Kingdom with a very delicate goal: stage a quiet, respectable re-entry that might soften public sentiment and reset the narrative. Before the plane touched down, he pleaded with Meghan not to do anything that could jeopardize this fragile PR and marketing operation. The brief was simple: let Harry appear as Harry. No drama, no stray headlines, nothing for the press to sink their teeth into. He'd been thoroughly coached. Keep the smile switched on in every frame. Avoid the stiff look. Dodge the scowl the tabloids love to magnify. Yes, the old Markle tricks, as the media calls them. Smile, nod, glide. That was the playbook. But of course, Harry's biggest obstacle wasn't the cameras, or the choreography, or even the public mood. His biggest obstacle, as ever, was Meghan.
You see, this just proves the point about how Harry has, as we all know, no control over his wife, the cable TV actress.
Here's the crux, and it's revealing. Harry has no real control over Meghan Markle. None. We all know it, and this episode proves it. Meghan likes to claim she doesn't read what's written about her on social media. In interviews, she insists it's all white noise, nothing she pays attention to. And yet, somehow, she knows exactly how and when to retaliate. How does that happen? It's simple, really. The staff members who still remain on her payroll monitor everything. It's part of the job, like the class pet who rushes in, breathless, saying, "Look what they said." That's how the machine keeps humming. And yes, for those curious, we're well aware that Meghan and her team keep a close eye on channels like this. We've even placed tiny tells from time to time just to see who's watching. And let's just say, message received. Now, set the scene. Harry, back on British soil, heart pounding a little harder than usual. He wants this to go well. There are charities and donations on the line, carefully staged appearances, a plan measured to the inch. The operation is designed to make him look steady, gracious, above the fray. And it's working, until Meghan is briefed on one particular story. The source? Lady Elizabeth Anson. Yes, that Lady Elizabeth. An intimate friend and confidant of our late and much-loved Queen Elizabeth II. What we're told is that friends, real friends of the Queen with stature and history behind them, finally felt compelled to push back on Meghan's version of events. Enough was enough. With due respect, dignity, and impeccable credentials, Lady Elizabeth conveyed something that many within the palace had whispered for years. Her late Majesty was not, shall we say, a great admirer of Meghan. Polite words wrapped around a hard truth. Near the end of her reign, the Queen had more than enough on her plate. The dramas swirling around this new member of the family were not something she needed to contend with. Harry sensed immediately how combustible this could be. Please let Meghan not see it, he hoped. But she did. Of course she did. And that, according to those who know how these storms brew, is why you heard what you heard in her Bloomberg interview. Once again, Meghan reached for that familiar spade and gave the past a little dig. This time at someone who can no longer answer back: the Queen. You see, the late Queen was meticulous about standards. Clothing that communicates respect. A proper hat, hair set, makeup restrained, nails neutral, nothing gaudy. Standards weren't about vanity, they were about the crown. When you enter that world, you honor those customs. That was the culture. Yet Meghan came in and, in effect, said, "I don't care, no hat. Not this, not that." The pantyhose line, what we call tights here in the UK, wasn't a throwaway remark. It was a pressure point, a deliberate jab. Her late Majesty was quite firm about tights for the ladies of the family, especially at formal engagements and official travel. And there had, as the story goes, been a blow-up about Meghan not wearing them on that now famous train journey with the Queen. Afterward came the excuses. "I forgot them. I'm not used to wearing them. Do I really have to?" Every inch became a battle. People who were there, who saw the frictions unfold, will tell you the same thing. This was not a case of a misunderstanding that softened with time. It hardened. So when Meghan raised that subject years later, slyly, on a global platform, it landed not as an observation but as a dart aimed at tradition, and by extension, at the woman who embodied it. Harry knew exactly how that would read. He was terrified of the backlash. He could feel his careful UK return wobbling before it found its stride. The word inside the camp is that Meghan asked to have that line cut from the interview. Allegedly, of course, but it stayed in, as these things often do. And with that single choice, the narrative around Harry's homecoming risked sliding off the tracks. Instead of Harry returns with grace, it threatens to become Harry returns, and Meghan reopens the old wounds. Let's pause and take in the symbolism here. The Queen's dress code wasn't superficial. Hats, hair, subtle makeup, proper hosiery, these were signals of continuity. They told the public the institution remains steady regardless of passing storms. To wave those off, especially publicly, doesn't read as modern or bold to those who understand the monarchy. It reads as dismissive of the values that have held the whole structure together. And remember, the Queen's standards were never arbitrary. They were the result of decades navigating diplomacy, statecraft, and scrutiny. She knew what played well, what soothed tensions, what projected calm. If you're a newcomer, you can either learn the craft or fight the craft. Meghan chose to fight. Now you can see why Harry begged for a clean run. The PR plan wasn't complicated. Show up, smile, support good causes, make no waves. He had even been drilled on the micro-gestures. Smile in every photo so tabloids can't frame you as sulky or sullen. Avoid the downward glance that gets spun as gloom, hold posture, project warmth. But the plan assumed the offstage would stay offstage. Once Meghan's interview line went live, old arguments roared back like a gust through a barely latched window. Suddenly, people weren't talking about Harry's charitable visits. They were dissecting tights on a train and who did or didn't bend to the code of the crown. And here's where compassion for the late Queen comes in. Near the end of a long, dutiful life, the last thing she needed was an internal skirmish over protocol made public. Friends like Lady Elizabeth Anson spoke up precisely because they felt the public record was tilting under the weight of Meghan's retellings. Always so artfully phrased, always with the implication that tradition was somehow petty or oppressive rather than purposeful. For those who served the crown faithfully, that implication stung. The institution survives by quiet restraint. To splash the family arguments across the world's front pages isn't brave. It's reckless. Back to Harry. You can picture him watching the clip roll out, eyes closing for a beat. He'd hoped the line would be cut. It wasn't. He'd hoped the focus would be on his causes. It wasn't. Not entirely. To be fair, life as the Sussexes is a perpetual train wreck of competing headlines. There's always something newer, louder, more combustible to occupy the press. So in the end, the full-blown backlash he feared didn't quite ignite in the way it could have. But the damage wasn't nothing. It took air out of a careful effort. It made those who want to root for him hesitate again. And it reminded everyone that where Meghan is concerned, the center of gravity refuses to shift from Meghan. Which brings us to the heart of it. What a thing to do to someone who showed you such kindness. Her late Majesty extended extraordinary grace at the beginning, welcoming, instructing, modeling. She offered the benefit of a doubt not everyone in the corridors of power was willing to extend. To take a parting shot at her standards after she's gone, when she can't reply, can't contextualize, can't teach one more time, feels, to many, deeply unkind. You can update a tradition with reverence. You don't need to belittle it to evolve it. So yes, the plan was sound. Harry returns as himself. The smile practiced but sincere, the schedule generous, the focus on service. And yes, the wrench in the gears came from exactly where those who know the couple best predicted it would. Meghan saw the Lady Elizabeth Anson story. Meghan felt the sting. Meghan chose to answer, pointedly, publicly. The line stayed in. The risk returned. And Harry, ever hopeful that this time might be different, discovered that it wasn't. In the end, observers will say the UK visit survived. The charities were grateful. The public saw a composed Harry, and the worst of the storm passed overhead rather than straight through the center. But for those who watch these dynamics closely, the lesson was unmistakable. As long as Meghan keeps one eye on the commentary and one hand on the microphone, the simplest plan can become a complicated mess in a heartbeat. That's not fate. That's a choice. Anyone else feel the same? What a needless thing to do to a family and to a sovereign who, at every turn, tried to meet you more than halfway. Reporting today from the very heart of London, this is Celeb Core.